What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got round three with Maurizio of Kataklysm. Great to talk to you again, man. Hope all is well.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
We're hanging in there. Let's put it that way.
Yep. I'm in New York City. You're in Florida. We both got kind of screwed, so we understand each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. So the new album, Unconquered, scheduled to come out September 25th of this year. Is this just a continuation of what you were doing off of Meditations, or is this like a new start for Kataklysm in a way?
I think this is a new beginning. We wanted to start fresh on this record. It was a different approach on it. Me and my guitar player JF, which are both founders of the band, decided that we're gonna take the reins on the album, and we wrote it together, and it just came out like the way it did, like really like water. It just flowed right out. And so it's kind of a different approach because of also production wise and sound wise. We upgraded to a 7-string guitar on this record. It's the first time we do that in our career.
Making moves.
Automatically it's gonna make the sound much fatter and stronger and heavier, and that was the right timing for us to do it. We wanted to try something new.
Yeah. Could the single that you released, The Kill Shot, could that maybe serve as a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is that just the tip of the iceberg?
It's gonna have it's very varied record, but there is songs that are gonna be in that direction. It is a very intense record. It's very aggressive. It was driven with anger when we wrote it, and just that we felt this energy and we wanted to put it on a record, and you got this type of attack that came with Kill Shot, and it's kind of coming from I don't know where, but it's inside of us, and we wanted to put it out. Basically, you're going to have a sort of songs that are going to be a little bit more melodic and groovy, like Kataklysm is known to do, but with this big sound behind it. And then you're going to have other songs that are going to be actually heavier than what you just heard. So it's a very diverse record, but it all stands together.
Mm-hmm. Was there maybe like a preconceived idea going into the making of this album, or did things kind of like just happen the way that they did, like happy accidents, as I like to call it?
The only preconceived thing is we wanted to upgrade the guitar and go to a 7-string, and but everything else was just natural. We on the previous record, I think overthought a lot of things. We tried to do a few things a certain way and all that. This record, we were like, let's revisit some of those records in the past that are really close to our hearts, like In the Arms of Devastation and Serenity and Fire, and some of the past albums like that. And then we decided, why don't we take that and then push it into a more modern direction, and just modernize the band a little bit. But the idea that it just came out, it was natural. It wasn't just like, oh, we have to do this specific thing, and just came the way it did.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd imagine, with the state of the world that things are, and I don't know how like far in advance you were writing this album, but did maybe like the state of the world that we're currently living in maybe influence this at all?
The crazy thing is no, because this record was finished in December of last year.
Oh wow!
And we gave it to the label in January. And the album title was Unconquered, which is crazy because of what's going on right now. We're kind of like, it's kind of a statement. It's perfectly timed, in my opinion. And but the idea is when the label got it, when this hit, I mean, you were in New York, so you know more than me. Like, when you got first hit there, it was scary because nobody knew what was going to happen, and the record label actually got shut down themselves. They couldn't even, ship records out, do nothing. So for the first months, I would say from March to April was kind of a scary time, and we decided to postpone the record, and because it was supposed to come out this month in July back then. And we decided to postpone it to later, and in September. And then Nuclear Blast was like, look, this is a strong record. We should take no chance and maybe push it out and all the way to 2021. And that's when we decided not to do that, because we wanted to keep music out there, because I think this is a time that fans need it. It's a time where there has to be music to uplift people, and Kataklysm's always been that band with a positive message, even though it's a very, the Kataklysm's lyrics and stuff is about, something bad happening and then beating it and coming back. And I think that's why it's the right time for us right now to be putting music out. We don't care about the sales. It's more than that at the moment for us, and we wanted to be true to ourselves.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you know.
I love what you're saying. It's a positive message. And I've always said Kataklysm, like, here's my slogan for Kataklysm. I say it for a couple bands too, but you guys are evil music for very good people. That's
I never heard that before, and I love it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to keep
Yeah. Well, I've offered it to other bands, and none of them took me up on it. So if you want to grab that slogan, it's yours. So
I will, yeah.
evil music for good people. But it's really funny that you mentioned that because, you know, a lot of bands have put out albums during this time, which I think is great. You know, new music is helping people get through this. And when you look at like Lamb of God's newest album and like Make Them Suffer's newest album, and like a lot of these albums have come out, it almost seems like that they have more context because of the times that we are in a way.
You know, I think that if people are afraid to ruin their careers over it because, you know, nobody can tour and there's all this other stuff, but there's a plus to it too. It's like you're getting attention. You know, people are home, they're not doing much, and a lot of people are not working still, and a lot of musicians are not either, and so, you know, you're home and then something comes out and you're going to check it out. So we have that positive about it. Obviously, you know, if you're releasing a strong record and then you can't tour for it, it's not cool. You know, it affects everybody, including, you know, sales and all that. But in the end, you know, this is a time period in all our lives that we've never experienced before, and it's brand new, and, you know, we don't know where it's going, how it's going to end, but the moment is now that we need to think about, and we need to be together now. You know, when everything is great, you know, it's not the time to everybody, oh, let's put our record out, we're here, you know. It's like, I think the bands that are releasing records, and I commend them, you know, because it takes courage also to do that, and at the same time to take a gamble on your career, but you're doing it for the cause of metal, you know, like music and everybody being together.
Yeah, of course. Like, you know, like people say, like, without shows, it's hard for like the industry to make money, and that's true. Like, no doubt about it. But like, without albums, nobody wins. You know what I mean? The bands don't win, the consumer doesn't win, the industry, like, nobody wins without the music.
There's no life without music.
Yeah.
You know, life would be pitiful without music. So we need it. You know, it's a soul thing. You know, so.
When you look at the entirety of the Kataklysm catalog, I mean, going from, you know, Temple of Knowledge to Shadows and Dust to, you know, Heaven's Venom, and comparing it to Unconquered, do you almost kind of look at these albums in a way like a timeline of who you are? Like, do you almost look at these albums as like a self-portrait in a way?
It is. I mean, it's your evolution, right? As a band, and then there's mistakes in it, and there's things that you maybe would have done a bit different, and there's things that you wouldn't have touched at all. Like, you know, you're happy with what it is, and you know, but without those moments, you won't have the career you have, and I think. It is crazy to see the evolution of this band. I mean, let's be honest, you know, we're on our 14th record. It's very difficult to, at some point, to completely reinvent yourself or make yourself still be desired out there because there's so much content, you know. So for Kataklysm, I think we have this direct connection with fans that is very special. And they feel that they're part of a family and a movement, and I think that's very important for us to continue doing that, you know. And this album is just, we're getting the type of feedback as you know, one of our top records ever. Like when we had like some breakthrough records like Shadows and Dust or Serenity and Fire, for example, we're getting that type of feedback from this album. So already. And we're happy about it, you know. It's like, it's cool to see that happening, you know, for bands that have 14 records out, you know.
Yeah, I'd imagine too, having 14 records, it has to get harder to put a set list together with every live show you play, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you got always going to have that fan is, why didn't you play the song? Well, it's like, dude, if you want to be here for a week, we could play every day and you'll play, you know, we'll play the songs. But we try to do our best with that, and I think we're going to be more and more asking fans what they want to hear as we get, you know, ready for next touring cycles and stuff, and we'll see, you know, what happens, because in the end, you want to play what people want to see, but you also want to play stuff that you like, right? So, you know, we'll see when the time comes, but it's definitely becoming more of a problem, you know.
Yeah, especially like, you know, being that you have like such a diehard dedicated fan base too, like there's always like those couple fans who like want to hear like the deep cuts, like the bonus track off of like Temple of Knowledge or something like that.
Yeah, you know, and then when you play it, it's only those three people that are like, yeah, and then the rest are like, what's that? You know, so it's like, you know, and then that's what happens often with some of those classic songs that people want to really listen from, like, let's say 25 years ago, unless you're Slayer and you got to play Rain and Blood every night, or else people throw stuff at you. That's the type of stuff that sometimes happens. But with Cataclysm, we're lucky to have such a diverse lineup of songs and albums where we're able to move around pretty comfortably when we're doing shows, so that's cool.
Yeah, some bands have been doing like anniversary tours, like when they do like only deep cuts. Like Lacuna Coil did that last year, and it was very well received. So it's not impossible to do.
No, we could revisit that in the future for sure. I mean, it's something that why not? We're getting close to our 30th anniversary in a couple of years, so that could be something that we could look at for sure, and do something special around that time. Been around, like I said, for a long time, and I think we have 14 records in 25 years, I believe. So it's pretty packed.
Mm-hmm.
we have material.
Definitely. I don't think you guys have any problem. Like you'll never have too little material to bring to a show. Yeah. Now, we talked a lot about like the lyricism on the first two times that we've done the interview together, but what I was curious is, in order to get inspired to write music, whether it is lyrics or the music itself, does inspiration sometimes just come out of nowhere, or do you almost kind of have to like put yourself in a certain place in order to get into like writing mode and let that creative energy flow?
I'm the type that adapts what I have as in my environment in my lyrics and what I have in happening around me. It could also just be, something that happens to me in my everyday dealings in business or whatever, because I also run a management company and I have an agency in Los Angeles that does a lot of touring for bands and stuff. And I deal with a lot of different characters and stuff happens and it's like, oh man, really? And it's just little things like that can have already an impact on how I'm going to write some lyrics, it's like on certain people or whatever. And I'm a realist, and a lot of my lyrics are dealing with everyday life issues, and some of them are more past oriented that I bring back to revisit now. So that's what happens a lot, and I write a lot in an open way so that people can actually put their own life experiences and adapt to it. So that's the way I like to write with Cataclysm.
Yeah. So it's not like you try to be too metaphorical for your lyrics, so to speak, right? You try to be as direct as possible.
No, like I might not even write about this whole thing here that happened, I'm sure there's going to be like tons of bands in the next record, writing about COVID-19, it's like it's not, it has to be something that is emotionally for me, hard hitting in the sense of like, affecting my soul or something, this is something that, is here. And some people, this is a great lyrical idea, let me write it. It has to be more deep for me. This is part of life. We're on Earth, viruses happen. It's like, we could talk about the Spanish flu and do a song about that. That was more devastating. So it's like, there's all kinds of different angles when you write. For me, it's more personal.
Mm-hmm. Do you try to, in a way, I started asking artists this, sometimes it kind of puzzles them a little bit, but do you almost try to capture a moment with each song? Is it like representative of like the now in a way?
It is, very much so for me, as far as like, if I wrote, let's say Meditations, for example, when I wrote that, I was going through very stressful times, and I was in a very depressive mode. And then the reason it was called Meditations is I really, took music into the self-healing process, and that moment, that's why that record was the way it is. And if you come into this record, I felt way more aggressive. It's way more, driven, like I want to break shit, and that's how the album's coming along. So it has a very psychological effect to it over the years as I'm going through the process. Like a Ghosts and Gods was a time where I lost my grandparents, which kind of almost raised me, and the title's called Ghosts and Gods, and so we have, there's a personal touch to everything I do, or else I couldn't sing the lyrics. You know what I mean? So it has to have a meaningful purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes, you're working on a song for days or weeks. If you're Tool, you're working on an album for 13 years. Like, I'd imagine, like, do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on something, the harder it is to kind of maybe maintain that creative or emotional spark?
I mean, I don't know how Tool does it. I couldn't start a song and finish it 13 years later. I can't do that. You know, it's like it's a moment thing for us. You know, there's songs that we've written in the past that have become classics that we wrote in 2.5 hours, like Shadows and Dust. In Shadows and Dust, that was a song that was written in 2.5 hours and it stayed forever. Wow. You know, it's in jukeboxes in Germany, you know, for example. But it depends. It depends on the moment for Kataklysm. We're very hands on deck when we're writing. This is the feeling. This is what comes out, you know. And we're not experienced with. Let's delay it for 6 months and see what happens later on the same song. I think you lose magic doing that unless you're Tool. They're still able to release great stuff years later. So everybody has a different approach, you know. But for us, it's about the moment, you know.
Yeah. Well, when you play this material live and you re-execute it, does it almost kind of put you back in that emotional state of mind?
I think so. Yes. Yes. And then what's even more cool about it is when the fans that are in front, let's say, singing along to you, are also in that moment, and that's what's cool because for them it represents something different. You know, the lyrical content for me is something, but for them is different. But we're in the same energy level, you know. So I love that part of touring. That's what I'm missing right now because for me it's a healing process, right? Like somebody's gonna go punch a bag or something, and they're gonna go run outside for 10 miles. I also do some of that, but I am more, my release is getting on a plane and going on a concert, and then playing a tour and knowing and talking to the people like, hey, I wrote this song, you feel the same way, right? And they're like, yeah. And that's how we connect with our fans, and that's how we've done it for all these years.
Yeah, and when you hear on how like a fan resonates with your music, even if like they have a different interpretation of it, when you hear how somebody resonates with your art, does that maybe change on how you look at yourself as an artist or that particular piece?
Yeah, sometimes, it's depends also how, sometimes I'll have a surprise about a song and then somebody thinks it's about something and for them, and it's completely different for me. And then I approach in a different way. I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah, it could be that too, So it's a different type of thing. And a long time ago, I wrote a song called "Manipulator of Souls," which on one of our earlier records, 2001, I think it came out, called "Epic." And on that album, and that song specifically, I don't know how many emails I got back in the day, or like when I encountered fans saying, "You saved my life with the song, man. I was an addict. Listened to the song Manipulator of Souls and it got me out of it," or somebody else was suicidal and it got him out of it, or whatever it was. It was different for everybody, but the message was the same, So it's kind of like cool when you do that, like when that comes out and it touches people like that. So I interpret it my way, but I am able to see things differently from every person that talks to me about it.
Yeah, like when I saw you at the Gramercy Theater show with Soulfly, as a journalist, my job is to kind of be like the buzzkill at every show and talk to fans, interrupt their discussions, and I'm asking them, what has this band done for you? Like how, and like I've heard some great stories on how like your music has really resonated with them, and I feel like almost like being an artist, it's like that connects with people. It is almost kind of like a responsibility in a way.
It is, and we feel that responsibility right now as we're speaking. Because this album and the title, and especially lyrical content on this record, couldn't come at a better time. That's why we were adamant with the record label, let's just release it. Because I feel this is a time where there's a lot of insecurity, and we need to glue people together, and not in that sense, of the virus stuff. Like we still need to do the social distancing thing, but I meant mentally. With the music, and I think this is a time where I've been in places where I was really low in my life, and the only thing that kept me up was music, and I think this is a time like that for a lot of people.
Yeah, it almost seems like you've mastered the art of using darkness and pain as your armor, and don't let it become your anchor. That's how I've always.
Absolutely yes, and you're the first journalist that has got that.
Oh well, I'm honored. I'm honored.
Yeah.
And then I got a couple more questions for you. But being that you work in the industry, being working in the booking world and all that. I mean, I don't know if it's really my place to ask this, and if you want to skip it, I'll totally understand. But like, is there like a plan that maybe you and some other booking agents have in the future? Like, do you think that like when concerts do happen again, it will just be able to go back to the way it was, or do you think that things are going to have to change?
I think, and this is just by many meetings and conversations that we're having and stuff like that, that in the beginning, it's going to be very different. It will come back to what it was because life always does. Is it going to have some changes? It will. It's exactly like when you're traveling on a plane. I think masks will be here to stay for a long time. There's not going to be no, we're out of the masks in 4 or 5 months because this is going to be approached as a virus that can come back in different forms forever. So it's not going to be something that I think, it's like people think you're just going to shut it off and it's gone. It's happened before that some viruses are just, came in and they're gone. Like the SARS before this was just like something that came out the 6 months and it was gone at 3 months or a very short time. I don't remember exactly. Don't count me on my quote on that, but it wasn't the same. This is different. This is like massive amount of people infected and all that. So I think this is going to scar some things in the concert business. You're going to have a lot of capacity reductions. That's going to happen for sure. You're going to have masks be implemented for sure for a while. But I still prefer that over not having any concerts.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know how it's going to be transformed, but it will be.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like it was, and that's not going to be for a long time. I think open air concerts are going to have way more ability to be more normal because it's outdoors, and you're going to have a little bit more flexibility with that, but not with indoor concerts. That's going to take a while. We're hoping that what's going to make it stop? Vaccine. What's going to make it controllable? Some sort of medication that's going to be able to get people to be able to kind of manage it, And if that happens, we're going to be in a much better place for concerts, And then, you're going to deal with all the people that don't want to get it and all this stuff. So it's going to be a long process.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at least, We don't have a clear answer yet, and we're already 4 or 5 months in.
Yeah. Well, what the mask at concerts thing I find a little, because I remember after the Paris attacks happened that they wouldn't even let me wear my hoodie inside of a concert, let alone covering my face with a mask. So I'm just wondering if imposing this health benefit could maybe cause another hazard in a shape or form.
Of course it will. It already started.
Yeah.
With some of the looting and stuff, people don't know like who did it and all this stuff. So there's going to be, it's going to have to be worked in a way where, am I saying it's forever? No, I don't believe it's forever. People are not going to, do this forever. It's just, I think it's going to be for the immediate future. You know, and then we'll have to see how it adapts and how it works out. And look at how airlines are now. Compared. Like even after 9/11, it was crazy. Like just the security, nobody wanted to do it. They adapted. Now you're going in a plane, and apparently it's like you're in a doctor's office. Everybody's got the suits with the masks and the big shields and all this stuff, and they're giving you a little bag with bottle of water in it and hand sanitizer, and no more food, no more alcohol. It's like. It's crazy. Like it's just a new adaptation. And I think for the time period we need to do it. I prefer some sort of control and so that the fans are in a safer environment and we're able to do concerts if they still want to go out and experience this versus not having anything.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Like let me also add that this, example for me, I make my living a lot with concerts. I have the agency, all the bands I manage with Hard Impact are all standstill. A lot of them are getting a lot of, doing some of the streaming now. We're trying to get that going a little bit for some artists, but everybody's just hurting. We're just here waiting, and the longer people don't connect together and try to figure out, that this is a real thing and we need to get together and stop it, and at least help the situation by wearing masks, this is going to last longer.
Yeah, of course, because it's always easier to tear things down than to build something up. So it's easier to blame somebody else or, be inflexible than to work together. It sucks, but it's the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, and I really wanted to ask you this because I remember by the way, for people who don't know, you were in charge of the Hypocrisy Flesh God Apocalypse tour, right, last year?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
which was an awesome tour, by the way.
It was a great tour, yeah. And I manage Flesh God Apocalypse as well. They're part of my roster of bands, and they just released a great, phenomenal record called Veleno, and they couldn't tour for it. It's like craziness,
Yeah.
But
Well, I saw them. I think that it came out on that tour. So.
yeah. So I guess some people saw it, but then it's that thing when you get to know the record, and then you want to see the band because you know the songs better, and it's. They were supposed to do an entire, orchestra type of tour with the strings. We live that got canceled, and that was going to be like their tour was like a Live Nation tour that got canceled, and devastating for the guys. But
yeah,
we're on the same boat. We're going to have to wait it out a little bit and see how things develop.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit briefly, but working, both on the stage and behind the stage, like there's been a lot of musicians who took up the management position. Obviously, Vinnie Paul did it for a period of time. Rest in peace. Des from Devil Driver does the whole management thing. I'd imagine, and you said it before, it kind of teaches you new things about your own band as well, right? Do you sometimes maybe rip off your own bands? I'm kidding.
No. You know what? The way I approach management, every band has its own character. Every band has its own direction. Some bands don't need much as far as direction with their art because they are artists already, and that's what they do. What they need more help in is the managing of the business side and stuff like that. You always learn from everybody, right? Like, it's not to say that I know everything and I don't need to learn from my own artists. That's not right. That's not true either. Do I rip them off? Absolutely not. But if I see something that's like really cool, I might change it and adapt it into a different thing, but they get from me, 25 years of experience from the live road to everything, and I keep feeding these guys all this knowledge, and that's helped a lot of my bands, achieve different levels of success. So I really approach bands by their character, and what they need.
Yeah.
So because everybody's different, so everybody needs a different approach.
So it's not like it's not like the restaurant business where if you manage one restaurant, you could possibly manage a bunch of other restaurants. It's like every band is almost like a different business experience, almost.
Exactly. I mean, it's if you're managing an Italian pizzeria, you're going to have a hard time managing, I think, maybe a sushi place because it's two different things, two different worlds. It needs to be approached in a different manner, So I kind of see it like that, and everybody has a different vibe, and the musical aspect is different. Like I manage Flesh God Apocalypse, but I also manage Unleash the Archers, and
they're awesome.
And Windrose, and bands like we're a completely different spectrum. Or Septic Flesh is closer to Flesh God, but then we have bands also like Christian and Karakangren, and they're all in a different environment. Like Karakangren right now is doing great with their record, and they're like more of like a horror type of world and different vibes with them. They're the Halloween band. So it's like
the black metal Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Exactly, it's like the new Alice Cooper, but for extreme fans. So it's everybody needs to be put in their own perspective.
Mm-hmm. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Always great to talk to you, Maurizio.
Same here, brother, man. I appreciate you, and I want you to be safe out there. And I'm glad that you're doing the right thing and keeping safe, man. And
of course,
we need you in these times. You're the voice out there. Without guys like you, there is no industry at the moment, and this is very important. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I got to say, doing an interview in the middle of a quarantine zone, sometimes when it's thundering and lightning out, is probably the most metal thing I've ever done in my life. So
that's awesome.
So, like, I was interviewing Mayhem one time, like, during the beginning of all this, and there was thundering and lightning out everywhere, and, like, you hear his deep voice, the making of the record was good. I'm like, this is the most metal thing of my life.
Fuck. Yeah. You just get the camera to get that lightning going at the same time.
Right.
That's for sure.
But is there anything, with Unconquered, like, can we maybe be expecting some live stream performances from Kataklysm or anything else you would like to promote?
Well, Kataklysm is going to release a new single next month, and we're going to do that repeatedly throughout the year because we can't tour, so we're going to release a couple of singles. look, some of my bands, that's what they want to do. I respect it. I love it for them to do that, and then they can try something. For me, it's something I'm going to hold off for a long time. I'm not a guy that's going to go in playing Cataclysm in a little room with a camera and here, guys, how you guys doing? Here's the new song. It's like maybe I'm old school, but it's not something that's in my cards, at least not for this year. If next year we're still in this position and the guys want to get together somewhere and do a live stream, we'll discuss it then. But I'm not that type. If I want to see a concert, I go to YouTube, just watch something.
Yeah.
But to each his own. And I have a lot of my artists that want to do it, and I respect it, and I push them, and I encourage it. Yeah,
I mean, a Suicide Silence's virtual tour was fucking awesome. So.
Yeah, you like that? Okay, cool. So, to be honest, it's like, I'm very pro fan reaction. I love to see the fans scream and the mosh pits and all that. So, I think I'm not ready mentally yet to do something that's so different. But I'm sure that if we're stuck in this position for a very long time, we might have to do it. Yeah.
Well, I may say, if you think it takes away, I've heard a couple of fans say they threw a couple chairs against the wall and broke some furniture. So even if you don't, yeah.
Okay.
So
you know what we should do? We should do that. But then have fans, filming themselves at their house while they're watching it, and then see what happens. Maybe the mosh pits are there, and we can see what they're doing.
Yeah, whoever breaks the most furniture wins some free merch.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we might be onto something, Maurizio. We got to start working together more.
Let's brainstorm.
There you go. But Maurizio, always great to talk to you. Everybody, we are here with Maurizio of Kataklysm, Unconquered, coming out September 25th via Nuclear Blast. Be sure to pick it up then once supplies last forever, and we will see you next time on Heavy New York.